live. Tell your friends you're listening to the Verhoeven Effect podcast. I'm Colin.
And I'm Nathan.
And we have another very special episode. We have the 1974 movie, The Towering Inferno. Nathan, do you have a history with The Towering Inferno?
Oh, this used to run like in a loop when I was a kid. You could watch this like almost constantly at night,
Oh, yeah?
especially on the weekends. There were like those, like when we lived in New York. Well, you don't remember, you were born there, but when we lived there, there was a lot of these side stations.
Yeah.
That's like there were stations that just played Godzilla movies over and over and other weird science fiction. Well, there were also like you could watch. This was still like network. But yeah, they'd run this like as a Saturday night movie or something. Um, I heard in Sweden they used to run this throughout the 80s and 90s after New Year. It was like the movie they played. I don't know why. I don't know what the significance of that was. But yeah, I've seen this movie probably 25 times.
Okay.
Bits. I mean, I remember everything in it when I watched it. I was like, yep, I remember this. I remember that.
I've never seen this movie. I've heard about it a bunch. But to the extent I didn't even know like who was in the cast, not knowing it was like a star-studded cast.
Oh,
so.
yeah. I think third most Oscar-nominated number of people in a cast of all movies ever made, I believe. I heard some weird fact like that.
Yeah.
Not all necessarily winners, but a lot of Oscar nominees in this cast.
It came out December 14th, 1974.
So I was a month or no, yeah, a month and a half old when this came out. So yeah, this was almost a 50-year-old movie.
Yeah. Director is John Gillerman. He's kind of just like an action director. Like he's directed a lot of like King Kong and Tarzan stuff.
Yep.
He also did Shaft in Africa, which also the writer from that, I think, so they like came over together for this one too.
Okay.
Yeah, this is kind of this is his most famous movie. You did a Death on the Nile, which is one of those what's it? Poirot detective movies.
Yeah.
Um,
Hercule Poirot.
Yeah, Hercule Poirot, but this one doesn't have. Yeah, I don't even know who this guy is. Peter Ustinov.
Ustinov, yeah.
So I don't remember who that is.
You'd recognize him. He was in a lot of. He did a lot of stuff in the 60s and 70s.
Oh, okay. Yeah, here it has like. He's old man in Logan's Run.
Yeah. I think he's the guy in the Capitol building.
I've never seen Logan's Run, so I don't know. I saw.
Oh, it's a super strange, cool 70s.
Yeah, we'll get to it eventually. We're probably just saving it, because, dark 70s sci-fi is special to us, I guess. We started the whole project because of it. Well, not because of it, but it was our first episode was Rollerball.
Yeah.
But yeah, I remember, like, was it... what's the train? Is it just Murder on a Train, or was it or Murder on the Orient Express?
Yeah,
that was the one where it has Sean Connery as Hercule Poirot. So this is like the follow up, I believe.
Oh, okay.
Well, I know, like oh, now I forget the guy's name. Kenneth Branagh has been remaking all these movies where he plays Hercule Poirot.
Yeah.
I haven't seen any of them. They all look like they're fine, but they keep making them because they did Murder on the Orient Express. I think they did Death on the Nile. Now they have a new one where it's like a ghost. It's like a ghost one.
They're cool. I mean, they're old fashioned, which is kind of unique.
Yeah.
Like they just tell the story. But it's a lot of people like being really good actors, but they don't like try to modernize it or anything.
I mean, they all look good. It's like produced by Scott Free Productions, but they all look really good.
Oh yeah, yeah, they're kind of cool. I mean, I just watch them, on Netflix or whatever. But.
Yeah. So yeah, that's direct. Let's see what we got. And it's the director of photography is Fred J. Conenkamp, who probably his most famous movie is Patton.
Yeah.
Which I forget. We did one of the directors we did directed that movie, so we've kind of you know, gone around this guy. Also, well, I guess we did. Oh no, we did. Did we do Adventures of Buckaroo Banzai for this? I think we did. Maybe.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure we did.
Yeah. So yeah, he did he's the director of photography for that movie, and
Okay.
he also did like 90 episodes of The Man from U.N.C.L.E. So that seems like where he cut a lot of his teeth on. So, I have Flight of the Intruder.
Oh, okay.
What other
He's
stuff?
like old school Hollywood then.
Yeah, well, yeah. Where does he get his? Yeah, he gets to start in like the '60s. You know, does a lot of TV and then works his way into feature
Movies.
stuff.
Yeah.
And I think ends up back in TV. Oh no, I guess not. Like, yeah, it looks like Flight of the Intruder is his last movie. Well, that's something listed as the Stan Freberg commercials 1999. I have no idea what the hell that is. So, but Flight of the Intruder is the last movie. Let's see here. It's written by Sterling Silliphant,
Yeah, it's a weird name.
who also wrote The Poseidon Adventure, which came out, which kind of why this movie exists, because that was a big hit. But also so was like Airport, like we said before. But I guess Poseidon Adventures was also a big hit. Must have been a bigger hit. He also wrote like In the Heat of the Night, the movie. I've never seen the movie. I've only seen the TV show because it was on reruns forever. Like when I was growing up.
I've seen the movie once.
Yeah.
TV shows actually like because it can do more depth and more character. It's like the movie's good.
Yeah.
But the TV show, you really, if you've seen that first, you like that because it's like, oh, we have like 20 episodes we can like explore this character arc. So.
Yeah, yeah. It looks like he did a lot of like, yeah. He got started out doing a lot of TV stuff. Did Alfred Hitchcock episodes. Wrote 37 episodes of The Naked City, which I think that's like one of those detective noir television shows.
Yeah. I believe so, yeah.
Cause then we read we read like Red Harvest, but I think that's like, I think that guy wrote, I think he also wrote something called Naked City that's based on. And
yeah, I believe so, yeah.
And he also wrote Shaft in Africa, which it seems weird. Get the white guy to write the movie where a famous black character goes to Africa. He's Canadian, so he's not even South African. Can't even like claim that, but no. Also, I didn't put their names in because I thought this was weird. Because usually, sometimes when it's based on a book, I'll go for the book, but this movie's based on 2 books.
Yeah.
It's based on. I didn't put their names down. It's based on a book called The Tower, and the other book.
Richard Martin Stern is the writer for one.
Okay. And then the other one's The Green Inferno.
Glass Inferno.
Oh, Glass Inferno.
Yeah. Which is actually cool. It's like, that's a cool name. Both of them are.
And so, like, I forget who it is. Universal bought one, and Warner Brothers bought the other. And then they decided, let's have a co-production, and they made the movie together, which seems weird.
It is weird, but I think it's the only time that's ever been done.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because they said like, yeah, well, let's not put out the same movie where it's like afterwards it seemed like, no, let's put out competing movies.
Yeah, they never did it again. Well, The Tower, they brought the rights to the movie for $300,000.
Yeah,
and I think the Glass Inferno was like $400,000 or something.
Yeah.
So they had almost like $1 million in $70s bucks of money just tied up in the rights to make. So yeah, I think that was some of the most money paid for an adaptation until like Michael Crichton books came along, or maybe Stephen King. I know that those are good paydays for. At that time.
Yeah, adaptations like back in the day used to not be well. I guess they're just paying for the screenplay. They're not necessarily paying for. Oh no, they bought the rights to adapt. Okay, yeah, so,
Yeah,
yeah.
they bought the rights to the
That
film.
used to not be a really lucrative thing. That used to be like, hey, you're a writer, down on your luck. Would you like $5,000 today?
Yeah. Hey, Cormac McCarthy, would you like a toothpaste sample? Because you've been writing a book for 8 years and have produced no income. Like, yes, I would. Okay.
um,
That's
I,
actually based on a story he actually told about. He ran out of toothpaste, and you remember you ever got those free samples of toothpaste in the mail?
yeah.
He was like, he had zero money, and he was working on one of his books, and he's like, I don't have toothpaste. This is rock bottom. He went to the mailbox, a sample thing of toothpaste, and he was like, well, I guess I meant to write this book. I don't know if you ever heard him interviewed.
No.
It's very monotone. It's like for a guy with that kind of imagination, is like he is literally the most bland interview. Because that is like, oh, a star-crossed thing with toothpaste and poverty, and he makes it sound like, well, I guess I should continue writing. It's like, he doesn't, but in his book it would be like a sign from
Yeah.
God that like he hates you and you need to keep working, and evil men and their money and all that stuff. Yeah.
I think it's at Universal. I think this was a co-production with Warner Brothers and Fox, I believe.
Yeah, Fox and Warner Brothers.
Okay. Because I believe the Fox guy like bought like Glass Inferno, but like for like more money.
Yeah, one of them was more than the other.
um.
I did a quick YouTube pass on both those books.
Oh yeah.
Yep, it was kind of interesting because the tower was actually inspired by the Twin Towers and all the interest around that.
Well, I heard both of them were. I'm not sure.
Well, I know the tower was. It was
Yeah.
like, what if? Because that book was written like, oh, there was a third larger building built
Yeah, yeah.
in New York where the Twin Towers were. Because part of the plot of the book was they were setting up the zip line between like the North Tower and the new and fictional skyscraper.
Yeah.
And they there's weird connections to that throughout the whole movie, because when you
Oh,
watch
yeah.
this movie now, all you're thinking about is 9/11,
Yeah.
9/11, 9/11.
It was
So
prescient.
and there's also weird like numerology stuff we'll get into later about some of the things that happened.
Of course, the cast is Paul Newman, Steve McQueen, William Holden, and a bunch of other people that you'll find out. That's the top.
Faye Dunaway, Fred Astaire, O.J. Simpson, Robert Vaughn, Robert Wagner.
The first police chief in Miami Vice.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right. The original police chief.
Or I guess captain of the detectives or whatever.
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah. He was
the guy gets shot and replaced by Edward James Olmos.
Yeah,
he's the bartender who dies unceremoniously when a statue falls on him.
Yeah, unconvincingly.
Oh yeah, yeah, because you can clearly see him move it. So it's like, I can get it off you. He didn't kill you.
This is Robert Vaughn is what's the guy's name? Who's the creepy senator? Ted Cruz. Looks so much like the senator from Texas. It's like, more foreshadowing in this movie. Only he was an honorable guy, actually.
Yeah.
He wasn't like but he looked like Ted Cruz.
I mean, except for he takes that wine, but as we find out, that's perfectly legal and fine, apparently.
Different time, different world.
Oh no, they're still. It's worse now, but
yeah, oh yeah.
Like now, people are getting into politics because it's basically a lifetime paycheck. Like they don't even. It's like, oh, you don't even have to do your job. You just have to make some noise to your constituents, and then you'll get elected for the next 20 years.
Yeah, it's like guys I know that's just like, hey, I'm in the union. I get my pension. It's like they're not. It's like, yeah, I'm just going to carry this plank of wood around until 3 o'clock, and then I'm knocking off and going home. It's like, now we have like U.S. senators, same mentality. They're not even going to carry the plank of wood around though. They're just going to say their back hurts and get a 75% pension at 20 years, and then start some corrupt business with their brother-in-law and avoid taxes the rest of their life. Great, this is awesome.
The American dream.
It just makes me think of that, those Schoolhouse Rock. I'm just a bill. It's like we thought that's how government worked. Oh boy, let's get involved.
I'm just what are the people that like what are the people that like pay to like basically like
Lobbyists.
yes, yeah, I'm just a lobbyist.
I'm just a lobbyist.
I write and make the bill.
That's why all the water in Michigan is made of Teflon.
So we have Act 1. We fade in on a helicopter rotor flying over the ocean.
Yep.
We get triumphant music is being played over the big cast names here, which I guess is John Williams. Which I don't know. This is like the only time I really recognized the music or like paid attention to it. So I guess yeah. I mean, yeah, this is pre-Star Wars though, so I guess.
Yeah, you wouldn't know this was John Williams unless you looked it up.
Yeah.
Doesn't really make an impression on you. But this was kind of before like Jaws and Star Wars and things.
Didn't know OJ was in this movie.
Yeah, that's kind of weird when you see it. I just think back to the what was my favorite OJ thing? The Sacha Baron Cohen "This Is America." When he's there with his Italian girlfriend and they get OJ Simpson in there because they're both pretending to be like foreigners. And they're talking in a foreign language, and she's like, "Cool, that OJ," and he would say something, and she'd be like, "No, no," and he'd be like, "Football, it's yeah." And finally, she's like, "No, no, I don't know." And finally, he like pretends to pantomime like stabbing someone. He's like, "Da da da, OJ," and she's like, "Oh," and OJ Simpson's like, "Please, God, no, no, that's not what I want to be known for." It's like, oh. I love that social stuff. It's like, oh my God.
They're flying over the Golden Gate Bridge, which I didn't know it was that at first because like it looks different. Like I don't. And actually, the thing is here is like this is like 5 years after the moon landing. You think, oh man, what can't America do? And like the thing it can't do is look clean.
Yeah.
All these movies, America looks like fucking garbage.
Yep. It's just new rust. That's the theme of the 70s.
Like I always know, like it's like New York 70s. It's always that's the classic. It's dirty. There's crime everywhere. I understand that. This is San Francisco, which is always held up as like this is where millionaires and billionaires live.
Well, unless you watch like 48 Hours or something.
Yeah.
That's like, oh, that's.
I mean, yeah, this is also where like Dirty Harry took place.
Yeah.
I'm not even sure why they chose San Francisco. I don't know if that was like because like Bullet is another famous San Francisco with Steve McQueen things. I don't know if it's like
well, it's because those streets are so cool to have chases on.
Yeah.
Because they're just natural ramps. Like you don't have to build stunt ramps in San Francisco. You just drive the streets and at a high speed. It also is a cool looking city.
Yeah.
I mean, if you live in what's that city that's next to it?
Oakland.
Where it's like all billionaires. No, the one.
Oh, what is it?
Marin?
Yeah, Marin County.
Yeah, it's like once you live there, you can't live anywhere else except like maybe the French Riviera. I've actually heard people say like, yeah, once you live there, it's like you can't live anywhere else because it's just depressing because it's all everyone's beautiful there because it's a mixture of billionaires and like movie stars, and it's like, oh well, I can't. There's no stopping me now. There's nowhere else to go. I've had it. I've reached the end of the runway.
Yeah, I've heard people like talk about like they used to live in San Francisco and like they're visiting back there, and like they have like just full force like automated cars there, so they just have like empty cars driving around and stuff. And it was like it's the weirdest thing to walk up to like a stoplight and there's just an empty car waiting to go, and they're like on the highways and on the streets there.
The weirdest thing I see is there's 5 guys each making $275,000 a year splitting an apartment.
Yeah.
Because it's literally they can barely afford to live there.
It's it's like mostly. Yeah, I say it because all these podcasts are like they're all video game journalists and they used to all live in San Francisco. Now they all don't.
Yep.
Now they all live in Jersey. Which is weird because that's also an expensive state, but I guess there's more opportunity to make money there, or weird tax situations, or they just love that their water isn't fluoride. It doesn't have fluoride in it or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Actually, mostly it's like they wanted to have kids, and the only way they could have kids is if they move closer to where their parents were, so they can watch their kids while they go to work.
Yeah.
And then the pandemic happened, and it's like, well, I guess I work from home now. I can watch the kids.
Oh. In mom and dad's house.
Yeah.
I was reading something the other day. I forget where. It was about Ann Arbor, but it was like someone's like, "Hey, is there any place like in Ann Arbor you can live for less than $3,000 a month?" And everyone was like, "No." Like that was just it. Like,
Yeah.
no. Yeah, it's called Ypsilanti. That's it. And it's like, oh, okay. Thanks. Thanks very much. It's like, yeah, there's no way.
Well, what radius does that turn? Does the $3,000 turn down?
Oh, it stops at the city limits.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because where I live is like we're like the Oakland to Ann Arbor, San Francisco. It's like there's a reason I live here, and it's because I can afford Ann Arbor.
That was the other trick that the game journalists used to do, is they just lived in Oakland and then commuted to San Francisco for their job because that's what they could afford. And now Oakland's being priced out, but it's still just the same grimy city that's not San Francisco.
Oh, yeah. Oh yeah, it's like a mile down my road. There was like a multiple murder like 2 weeks ago or something, and it's like in a house that costs more than mine. It's like, huh, okay, cool. But that was crime, but that was like a family drug thing. Like everyone who was killed like was related to one another. That wasn't like random crime. That was just like we're running this crack house out of a McMansion thing, or no, we're not. What is it? It was. Pills that people take, whatever the pills are, that make
pain pills.
No, it was like
ketamine.
Yeah, stuff you take and just like stare at a wall, or amazing things to do with your time like that,
or fentanyl.
No, it was like club stuff.
Oh, okay, yeah. So like Molly or ketamine. So
yeah, they were like making it in the basement or doing something, and then somebody thought they were getting cut out of the deal, so they just like, I'm gonna kill my relative. Oh, this is great. Because they built all these McMansions over here like 10 years ago, and like, yeah, guess what? No one can afford those, and so they become weird like businesses now, but not business. They're not like it's not like zoned for business, so they have huge basements that you can run like enterprises out of. Had people making hacking stuff, like illegal hacking, like electronic stuff, and in one of those places.
Huh.
It's like stuff that you can use to break into computers. I don't know what it was. It's like, okay.
We get titles on screen that say, "To those who give their lives so others might live, to the firefighters of the world, this picture is gratefully dedicated."
Yes, and that's literally the worst job I could ever imagine. I do respect like firefighters because I don't understand. It's like, it's all terrible. I've seen them go into house fires like in my neighborhood. It's like, that guy's what are you doing? Why are you going in there? Jesus. Just spray water on it. What there's no one in there.
Yeah, especially like with a skyscraper where it's like, oh, the elevators are out, you got this tank on you, and like, a 60-pound coat and an axe and rope. Like you gotta climb 100 stairs. It's like, or more than that, like 100 floors. It's like, yeah.
Yeah, that's what the big fires in like high rises always freaked me out, even as a kid. It was like, what happened? You're running upstairs like a lunatic. It's what's going to take you forever. And what if the building collapses or something? Like, well, that's just a nightmare. I can't imagine that. And then like, well, yeah, it actually happened. It's like, oh my God. And what happened? Well, they wiped out entire fire battalions is what happened.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, Jesus Christ. So, yeah, it is truly like the most terrifying job I could imagine.
Yeah, I mean, but I guess this movie becomes weirdly prescient because of 9/11, because it's like, oh, what's the worst thing can happen? It's like, this movie didn't even imagine the worst thing that could happen.
No, it's like, reality stranger than fiction, as they say. It's,
Although I think that the predicted body count that they predicted was less, but still horrifying in what reality happens. So.
Yeah, because they said like one day, like what, 8,000 people.
No, I think like 10,000 or something like that.
Yeah, it wasn't very far off that. There's a lot
like,
closer to that than it should have been. If they'd waited an hour, it would have been double that. So.
Because what was it, 2,000?
Oh, I think 5,000 people died on 9/11. I don't know. Let me check.
2,996.
Is that just at World Trade Towers?
Um,
That's probably everyone because thousands of people didn't die at Pentagon.
yeah.
So okay, I always thought it was like 5,000 people. Okay, well, good. I'm glad it wasn't that much.
I mean, most of them were. I think most. Well, actually, I don't know what the majority of it is. I always thought the most of it was firemen, but like, I don't like how many. How
I'd say fire and cop were probably half that
okay?
number.
Yeah, let's. How many firemen died on 9/11? This is gonna. Yeah, this is gonna. This is gonna pop something. uh. Let's see here. Riveting.
Yeah, here we go.
I guess it says number of firefighters and paramedics killed was 343, which is still a lot, but I thought it would more.
Oh, I thought it'd be half that. I thought it'd be like 1,200 people, cops and firemen and paramedics.
Yeah, because I always thought it was just like the firefighters, the people that stayed in the building, and that's why a lot of them died. But I'm guessing.
Well, the police were like outside, like trying to help people get away. They just
Yeah.
got crushed by the falling buildings.
But yeah, we'll get to that in the end. There's still there's way more 9/11 stuff to go over with this anyway. We'll get there. We get Doug Roberts, played by Paul Newman. He's revealed in the helicopter. Then we get I'm gonna say it's bad, but I think it's because of I'm not sure how much this is restored, but we get a matte painting, and obviously a matte painting of the tower is revealed.
Yeah, I think when they did, I was actually wondering about that because it looked like something wrapped in saran wrap at a distance. It's like, that's bad. But they said when they did like the color matching on because I just watched this as a digital thing.
Yeah.
That's based off of whatever DVD or whatever they got it off of. I guess they kind of screwed the color up in this because it's supposed to look darker than that. Like if you ever see it like on TV, like it didn't look that unconvincing on TV.
Well, also like the matte slightly jiggles, and so it's like, yeah, I know that's not a real building. But like I think we talked about this too with like what was it? What was the James Bond space one? Moonraker? That similar thing, where it's like because the picture gets cleaned up and it doesn't have that. It has like less grain on it. Like these matte paintings look a lot worse because they don't have the grain kind of like blending stuff together.
Yeah. Everything's way too sharp.
Yeah. So yeah, it becomes way obvious. And there's also two, like there's the one giant tower, but then there's also a matte painting for the tower next door, which is also not a real building in San Francisco. But
yeah.
Because I think the biggest building in San Francisco, well, actually, no, they might have a new one. I don't know, it was always the Coy Tower, which that might have a different name. But then they built like the Salesforce Tower, which I think might be bigger now.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know. I never knew. It seems like a good idea to build like skyscrapers in the Ring of Fire, but apparently they do that. So,
I mean, I don't know. There are some benefits to where actually taller buildings are more quake proof. I forget the physics behind it, but there is.
I've seen those videos from Japan. It's like there's no way that thing's going over. It's like, oh my god. I understand these things exist. However, to see these forces in motion is frightening. I know the Earth is like spinning very quickly right now, but relativistic to us, it's not. That's the same thing when those big buildings in Tokyo start doing this stuff. It's like, no, I don't want to see that.
Or like some of these buildings have like these giant counterweights, and when you see an earthquake, you see the counterweight move. It's like that thing's like 50 tons hanging on a string.
Yeah, and it's moving in a way I don't like. Why does it move licentiously? That's not. Why am I aroused by seeing this heavy weight move? You're screwing with my mind. My primordial brain is being weirdly tempted by your earthquake prevention.
Doug seems to be quitting his job like for a quiet life in the wilderness. I mean, that's just kind of what's happening.
Well, he's dressed like he's going to go hunt big game in Africa.
Yeah.
Weird costume on.
He just got out of the Shaft in Africa.
Yeah.
We learned that Doug designed skyscrapers, and there's a meeting with like some council to put up more skyscrapers. There's a senator on their way because they think like, yeah, we're just going to build more of these all over the place.
We're gonna build these everywhere. We're gonna build these in Chickpea, Ohio, or something. Everywhere.
Yeah, and this is still because like the World Trade Tower when it was built, like they were the tallest buildings in the world at the time, right?
I believe so. Yes.
Okay. Now there's like 6 other buildings that are bigger.
Yeah. Well, there's a weird economics around buildings that tall, especially in first world countries now, where it's like it's really hard to fill them.
Yeah.
Because World Trade Towers never paid off.
Yeah.
It's because everyone was like, they build them back, build them again. And it's like, oh God, it was a bad investment the first time. We're trying to dodge this bullet a little bit. Now we want to go back.
Let's just build one.
Yeah, let's build one big one. I liked it when they wanted to shape it like just a giant middle finger. And as it went up, it was just a middle finger facing the rest of the world. It's like, yeah, do that. Actually, I like that.
I think the usually they're all designed by the same company too. Like the people that built the World Trade Tower, I believe, are the same people that designed and built the like Burj Khalifa. Like they're just, I forget what it's like, the Willis or something, like design firm or something like that.
Yeah.
So it's if you got a tall building, they're the people to get.
Well, yeah, it's like the skill set of like, well, who's doing this? It's like, well, these guys,
Yeah.
And I don't know who designed like Petronas Towers or any of that, but I'm sure it was all like they're all interrelated.
Yeah, yeah. Well, this is like over years that they've been doing this, so they have to have turnaround. So they must still have like, the new guys coming in are like, this is the place to go if you're an architect.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was the architect always seemed to be like an alluring job, but now it just seems kind of like daunting and unfulfilling.
Yeah. Well, there's not a lot more to consider now than bigger, higher, stronger, taller, because now there's all these weird, like, will it survive like the third environmental apocalypse? Or, so you got to like add all that into it.
Well, and these are the buildings that are cool to design, where it's like somebody's got to design like the most bland building there is.
I want to be the guy that designs like the AT&T building in New York, the one that's like nuclear bomb proof. What they call it though? Well, they call it like the AT&T long lines building or something. But then it's like it got leaked. It's like, oh no, that's an NSA building codenamed Titan Point. It's like, what the hell does that mean? It's like there's a reason it doesn't have exterior windows. It's like so when the flash goes off, it doesn't get incinerated inside. It's like, that's dark. Imagine getting handed that. It's like, we need a nuclear bomb proof skyscraper. It's like, well, that doesn't exist. Well, not for a direct hit, but imagine like other parts of the city where it's like, yeah, we could do that. It's like, that's a dark world to live in.
Doug gets to a floor of engineers, and like there's just a bunch of engineers, and they all have problems, and he just walks past them. It's like, nah, that's not my job anymore.
Yep. I am on my way on safari.
Doug walks into an office, which I think this is his office. Yeah, I guess it must be. And
it is.
And he walks up to a chair, and you don't see her, but he starts making out with Susan with his Faye Dunaway. So
yeah,
another 70s hottie. So
this is literally one of the most beautiful women that's been always on film in the 70s.
Yeah. Just another lady who has like a huge face and is extremely thin. And it's just like, yeah, she stands out, I guess.
Yeah, it's just this giant head on this 70-pound body. It's like, I guess that was hot. I mean, she's very striking looking.
Yeah. But yeah, she's
not in a modern sense.
Well,
she needs to be able to like.
She's got a big head. It also means she's got those big eyes, so she basically looks like an anime lady.
Right. When you realize she has to use like both hands and her whole body to open a door, it's like, oh, that's kind of sad.
We cut to the street. Some old guy gets out of a cab, which I didn't know who this was at first. Like, this is Fred Astaire.
Let's not forget the fact that Paul Newman has office sex in his office sex room, which looks like something out of what's the guy's name, the British gag sex guy, Austin Powers.
Yeah.
Now they open the door and you think he's gonna be like, "Yeah, baby," it's just like the most gaudy '70s room. It's like, oh, office sex dungeon, cool.
Wait, he walks into a room which is like the receptionist area. Then he walks into his office, and then in the back of the office is a bedroom.
Yeah, it's weird. It's like office sex area,
But I
and
guess
it's really gaudy too.
yeah. Well, I guess if you have a building this big, you're not like might as well just build a living area and stay here and work all the time. So
That does make sense.
um. So Fred Astaire shows up, which I didn't know who it was at first. Fred Astaire, if you don't know who he is, he was like a famous song and dance man. So this is kind of like one of his more like, I don't know, like somber roles. He did a lot of comedy, right? So
yeah, he was more of a song and dance, comedy kind of guy.
Because he was like
He was
nominated.
also a man of the last century because he was born in 1899.
Huh.
He was from the 19th century.
Yeah, I know like the song and dance stuff was like big in like the 40s and 50s and stuff because those
Yeah.
pretty good. Because you have Fred Astaire and then you have what Gene Kelly is the other one.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was that and westerns. That's what you had.
It was before like Elvis Presley decided to like, oh no, this is how you really do song and music. It's like, wow, you're a genius. It's like, well, no, there's all these black people that were doing this way before me. But Elvis actually acknowledged that. A lot of people didn't. They just stole the music. I'm like, no, I did this. Elvis was always like, no, this is.
I'm British. What black people do I know that I can steal from?
Yeah. We're here. We're here to colonize music. It's cool the scene that they did when Fred Astaire gets out of the taxi, when he looks up and sees how tall the building is.
Yeah.
They actually built a 60-foot model of this building for certain, because there was different kinds of models built. There was like 3 different ones, but the big one, they built a really big one, like twice as big as anything that had been built for a movie before, because they wanted to make the fire look realistic, and it's hard to make fire look realistic on a smaller model. But what they did with this was they shot the building in a mirror with the camera. So they like put a mirror in front of the model of the building and shot down with a camera. And what Fred Astaire sees is the reverse of that.
Yeah.
So it's like they literally did this with smoke and mirrors. It's like, oh, okay.
Although, some of the model work's a little left to be desired in this movie, but the practical effects are like pretty amazing. It's like, yeah, that's a lot of fire. They're really doing it.
Yeah, there was some dangerous stuff that went on the set. And it was I mean, not dangerous like we're being dangerous, but there was stuff that you would never do now. Like, if the director wanted a good reaction of fear out of people, he fired a handgun into the air, and everyone would like flinch while the cameras were on. He's like, perfect scene, It's like, yeah, try that shit now.
No,
some of the explosions were not. They didn't announce them.
Oh, okay. No, the handgun guy was the producer. He was the Fox producer that did that.
Oh, I thought it was the director. Okay.
No, it was like some guy. I forget his name. It was like Ivan Kelly or something like that. Was the president? Was like the president of Fox at the time. And
well, Irwin Allen.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Oh yeah, he was the master of disaster. He was the who's the guy who does all the German guy who does all the disaster movies? He did like, what was it? He did like Independence Day and that guy.
Yeah, what was it? 2012.
Roland Emmerich.
Yes, that's it.
Yeah, this guy was like if Roland Emmerich was a producer instead of a director. But Roland Emmerich made like disaster movies for a lot longer.
Yeah.
And they're increasingly more disastrous with each one he makes.
Yeah.
More to the financiers than the audience.
Oh, what is his most recent movie? Can't be good.
About the moon.
Oh, is that it? Yeah. Is that like
terrible?
Yeah, Moonfall is the most recent one.
Yeah, that was.
Yeah, I've not heard.
A lot of interesting ideas. None of them paid off.
Yeah, what's Stargate might be his only good movie. Like Independence Day is good, but it's also bad. So it's I
Yeah.
don't know. Like it's a great movie, but it's also a bad movie. I don't know how to tell you. It's like great performances, great production, but it's also just stupid as hell. But you
Yeah, it
know.
pulls at the heartstrings, but this is not 2001 either. Or even a bad episode of Star Trek, really, in its logic. It's,
I like The Day After Tomorrow. That had some neat
that's
stuff
some
in it.
cool ideas.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, we're going to Hawaii. It's like, oh, it's just a giant volcano. It's the end of the world.
All right. Yeah, Fred Astaire.
Yeah. Right.
Oh yeah, then there's a scene where it's something with an art teacher and a deaf mother, and there's a kid that has some psycho space headphones on.
Yeah, I didn't understand. It's like, oh, is he neurodivergent? Wait, that didn't exist back then. They just hit him with belts if they acted that way back then.
But I mean, I assume what he has on. I'm not even sure if these are real things, but he just had wireless headphones, I guess. But
Yeah, well, they tuned into radio stations.
oh, okay.
Yeah, they had the ones with the radio broadcasting in them. Yeah, they weren't like true Bluetooth.
Then we cut down the basement. We have some technicians are testing the electrical equipment, and then they start a fire.
Yes.
There's like a tour going on, and so this is where they learn that or they say that the businesses are from floors 1 to 80, and then beyond that, it's all residential. Which I don't know how tall was this. How tall is this building? Like I know it gets up to like floor 120 or something like that, I think, but I actually don't.
Yeah, I thought it was 130 stories.
130? Okay.
That's what I thought. That was the number that always floated around.
Yeah, I just didn't remember them saying like actually how tall the building was.
Interestingly, the computer they used in the control room of this futuristic building was an old Air Force computer.
Yeah.
It was designed to detect and correlate Russian bombers. They ran it in a very limited way for the movie, and they mainly just hooked up They hooked up basically like flashlights that kind of moved around in a pattern, because to run the real computer was run by vacuum tubes, and it produced more heat than like a residential heating. So they couldn't really run it on the set without burning it down. Yeah, those computers were actually like 60s vintage computers, but they sexed them up a little bit to make them look like, oh, it's the futuristic building.
Well, it's got kind of like that monochrome green screen, which I associate with like Apple IIe's, I think.
Yeah.
But actually, a bunch of them were like that. They had IBMs, I think IBM had like the green the orange monochrome, and then they all switched, and then everything became in color, and it didn't matter anymore.
Yeah, because some were green, some were orange. Dad would know that stuff. He had all we're the first people I knew that had a personal computer at home.
Yeah.
We had the Apple II. And then we had the Apple IIc.
Yeah.
Where it was like in a case. It weighed like 300 pounds or something. It was the most durable computer ever made. Because the screen and the keyboard were all just one unit. It was like an aluminum case. And but then some of the later ones were separate. I think those were actually made in America, if that tells you how long ago that was.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, I think we had the 2E as well, or whatever what was the one where like the keyboard and the monitor were separate, and there's
That was
Math Rabbit.
2E.
Okay, and then
And then
Math
we had
Rabbit
the
on
2C.
it. Okay.
Which was like an older one, but it was actually more reliable for what we were doing. Because I remember I brought like homework in to work, like papers that I typed and printed, and they called Mom and Dad. They thought I was running some kind of scam. It's like, no, I just typed it on a computer. Like, nobody does that. It's like, okay, number one, it's the 80s. It's not the 50s. So yes, computers exist, but it's stupid. Anyway.
Yeah, young people, you'll never know the time of like having to rip off perforations of.
Yeah, these were the old like perforated with the feed things, and I think it was all double space. I don't think that because they would print like it was the old dot matrix, which was insanely complex and fast.
Yeah.
Of course, old floppy disk drives were like insanely mechanically complex. Ever seen one of those taken apart?
Yeah.
It's like, wow, I can't believe that actually worked consistently. So many points of failure in those, but also it's why they cost like $1,000 back then too. It's like, oh yeah, it's It's like buying a Rolex.
We cut to we have a fire breaks out in a utility room, which is I also caught this. There's a moment one of the engineers was talking about like we have a damper, it's not closing, which I'm not sure if it's this room because they show like uh no I'm forgetting. They show a supply grate dumping air into the room, and the fire breaks out, and typically in how buildings are supposed to work, if there's a fire detected, that damper is supposed to close so it doesn't feed the fire. And here it's not doing that. So.
Yeah. Well, it's implied that when they powered up the building, like the power system failed.
Yeah.
That's and of course it failed catastrophically in the paint, ketone, and oily rag storage room, where the wire just like it blew a fuse, and then the hot wire just came out of the wall, blew the panel open, and landed right in the pile of rags soaked in oil right next to spray cans and and I don't know what the standards were back then, but I know now like we put stuff in explosion proof like cases.
Yeah.
Like if we have like paint and cans or something, it has to go into the yellow cabinet. Now the yellow cabinets are unlocked and you can take things in and out of them, but you're supposed to return them. Now, people are, of course, doesn't always happen, but we don't just have like a room of paint and like MEK and solvent, just like, yeah, it's in road flares and dynamite that's sweating. We don't store it like that anymore.
But I've been in enough mechanical rooms where it's like, this is a mechanical room. This is where all this stuff that like heats and cools your building and does some power stuff in here. It's like, and then like, oh, I just thought that was the closet. It's like, no, don't use it like that.
Yeah. Can I store weed eater gas in here? Probably not a good idea. All right.
Then we have OJ as a security guy looking over video monitors. I think his name's like Gerental or something like that. I can't remember.
It's a weird name, yeah.
So I just call him OJ because it's just funner that way, I guess.
Yeah, the name on his uniform is like Jernigan or something.
Yeah.
That's a dumb name.
But yeah, he's looking over video monitors and computers and a big switchboard. This basically just looks like it's like the Enterprise, but for a building. So, we cut back to bed with Susan. There's strife amongst them because Susan's ambitious and she wants a job, which I don't remember what she says her job is. She's just like, I'm getting ready for this job.
Public relations, I thought.
Oh, okay. I guess, yeah. But yeah, also they talk about Doug wants to settle down, which it feels like they're both too old for settling down and having kids, but I don't know.
Believe it or not, they're both in actual age about 5 or 6 years younger than me at this time.
Oh, okay. Huh. They just look old, I guess.
Well,
yeah. Well, Faye Dunaway doesn't necessarily look old, but the thing I thought was weird is I didn't realize that like Paul Newman was 5 years older than Steve McQueen.
Yeah.
I would have thought he was younger.
I think Steve McQueen, how old was he? I know Paul Newman was like in his mid 40s. I think Steve McQueen was, no, Paul Newman was in his early 40s. Steve McQueen was in his mid 40s, and yeah. But yeah, when I found out like all of these people are all like 4 and 5 years younger than I am now, I was like, oh god. But it was a different time. It was a more whiskey soaked.
Then we cut to Doug shows up at Jim Duncan's office. He's I'm not sure what he's supposed to be. He's basically like the contractor that built the whole, or what would you call that? Not the main contractor. I can't remember what that person's called.
Well, he's like the builder of he's like the construction and building guy who like got the financing and oversaw costs and things like that. Played by William Holden.
Yeah.
The nicest guy in America.
Which it's weird because like he's in Network like a few years later and he looks younger in Network than he does here.
Yeah. He had some unfortunate like costume choices and those weird old square glasses like it always add like 20 years to people.
So yeah, here Doug is complaining about like the wire not being shielded by the conduit, so it's just loose. So that's what's, um, so he's like, oh, you did a hack job to save money. It's like, we're gonna have hundreds of floors of all this hack job. It's gonna create a fire. um, and it's already has. So that's. Oh, it is kind of interesting to like have like really only have like one villain here. Like Jim is also supposed to be the villain, but he's like, it's like, well, the building's not getting built if I don't do these things. So
Yeah.
you're gonna all
Like, he's
get
not like just like, oh, I want to see people die. It's like, no,
yeah,
I just want to bring this in on budget.
yeah. But he just um, conveniently like doesn't want to know like how that happens. He just wants it to be under budget. So.
Yeah. Yeah, because like the only really bad guy in this is his son.
Yeah.
Or his son-in-law.
Son-in-law, Robert.
Played by Richard Chamberlain, which is weird. It's like, oh yeah.
Wait, who's Richard Chamberlain?
Oh, he was in he's still alive. It's like 90. Let's see, what was Richard Chamberlain the most famous for? I know he was like the Thornbirds.
Huh.
Oh, that was in the 80s. And not sure what else he did. He did a lot of weird stuff.
Yeah, because some of these people I didn't look up, but like that was like.
I know when I think of him, I think of the Thornbirds, which was like a TV miniseries.
Oh, okay.
But it was like one of the best regarded TV miniseries ever made. I think he was in Shogun too.
Huh. Oh, apparently he was in some movie or a show called Dr. Kildare that had 191 episodes.
Oh, okay.
That's a lot.
That is a lot.
We cut back to the control room. OJ's messing around with the control board. The fire's still going on. Here he's like talking with another guard, and the guard's like, oh, we got these video cameras. I don't see a fire. There must not be a fire because OJ's seeing a sensor that says there's a fire. And they still don't like send anybody to check it out. They're just like debating whether there's a fire or not.
It's like the worst people in a movie. Well, it says there's a fire. It's like, well, it's not on camera. It's like, well, I guess we'll never know.
Which is weird because later on OJ is like the only one that like takes charge and makes sure that stuff happens.
Yeah, OJ has a lot of initiative for both good and bad things.
So that being the end of Act 1, because it's like, okay, we know the problems. There's a fire, and then there's also like a big banquet coming, so we know everything. This is just going to be turned into the building version of the Titanic. So.
Yeah, and this is supposedly the grand opening, but yet all the shops are already open. People are like half the building seems inhabited.
Yeah.
Like, huh? Okay.
Yeah, I didn't even realize that the promenade was like at the top of the building till like the end of the movie. I thought it was like somewhere in the middle or something like that.
Yeah, I kind of was thinking that too. I was a little confused. It's like, wait, where are they?
It wasn't until like they start going up to the roof and there's literally a door that says like helicopter like pad access. It's like, oh, so it's just like right there.
Yeah.
But then also there's magically, I thought well, like when they're going up that stairs, it's going directly to that. But then there's also magically 2 floors above them with giant stuff in it. It's like, wait, how does this work? That was confusing. So if Act 2, Doug shows up at a mansion looking for some, I wrote here electrical genius, but I think that was that he was being sarcastic because he's like, this guy's the problem of everything. Yeah. So Roger, this is the son-in-law of Jim. He shows up and like Doug is accusing him of cutting corners for like bonuses, which is exactly what happens. But,
yeah.
Also, I guess I should mention this movie's 2 hours and 45 minutes. And it doesn't need to be.
Yeah, and it feels a little longer, actually.
I feel like I could easily cut a half hour out of this movie.
Oh, yeah.
And I feel like I could probably get this movie down to 90 minutes. It might not make sense or you might not feel anything for the characters, but it will happen in 90 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, I don't need like 30 minutes of people rigging up rope. With no, it's not like a Michael Crichton thing. It's like, this is how rope is twined, and this is why it has tensile strength, and this is how it works. No, it's just people like handling rope in random ways. It's like, why are we doing this for 30 minutes? Okay, cool.
I do appreciate it, but there's also a lot of just side characters who just have tragic endings where it's like, we don't have to spend the whole time with them to make this a tragic ending. The tragic ending is the tragic ending. Especially with like Robert Vaughn, like his whole character is just like, oh, like is he gonna make it? Like, nope. Or no, not Robert Vaughn, Robert Wagner.
Yeah.
um, but also I guess there's something weird. There's like a weird competition between, or maybe it's played up between. There's on paper, there's technically this competition between Steve McQueen and Paul Newman, where it's like they have to have equal amount of screen time and the same amount of lines.
I mean, that could be true, but the only thing I know, like contractually, because you can read the contracts, they both got paid $1 million and they both got 7.5% off the back.
Yeah.
That's so they got exactly the same money. Anything else you can look into. I know they didn't really like each other a whole lot, but those are just two giant egos. Like,
yeah.
Those are like electromagnetic fields just bashing together. Like guys with egos like that. And it was mainly they didn't like each other because Steve McQueen thought he was a better race car driver than Paul Newman. That was a lot of their ennity came from like, I can really race, you can't. And
Paul they're
real racer.
Yeah, well, they're both men's, but
oh yeah,
I guess like as in reality, Paul Newman is a bit more diverse in that thing. Where it's like I'm a race car driver, and also I'm putting out salad dressing and raising money for charity.
Yeah. Where Steve McQueen's like, I like to have sex with women and drive cars.
Yeah.
Really fast. What are you doing for the world? It's like having sex with lots of women and driving cars really fast. I'm keeping women happy by making them sad.
Oh. Yeah, of course, yeah, we last saw Steve McQueen and The Getaway, so yeah.
Yeah.
Which I was surprised he'd show up here because I accidentally picked two Steve McQueen movies. I've still never seen Bullet, but yeah.
Oh, that's a cool movie.
I've seen that like the chase scene like 1,000 times because that's just like every retrospective will just bring that movie in. Like if you want like movies with cars, like here's this scene. Like movies with detectives, here's this scene. Car chase movies, here's this scene.
Car chase movies with detectives.
Maybe my favorite like 70s I don't know, it's a crazy name. I remember the movie actually being all right, although it's like weirdly like just disappeared. I'm not even sure if you know what it is, but there's a movie with like about like it's kind of like a comedy detective movie called Freebie and the Bean.
I remember it vaguely.
I already saw it one time on Stars. Like, hey, I've never heard of this. This isn't half bad. And I think I looked for it one time, and it just like I don't think it's even streaming anywhere or anything like that. It's just doesn't exist on the internet currently.
Yeah, Bullet's great San Francisco car chase. My favorite San Francisco car chase of all though was like the Deadpool.
Yeah.
What's the little RC car with the explosive on it chasing the giant police car? Because the police car is just there's this roaring engine like jumping to get away from this, and then here comes the little it's got like just plastic explosives all over it or something. It's like that's a weird, cool car chase.
Also, I think the interesting thing about Tower Inferno here is like it was a really expensive movie and big, and it only cost them $10 million. Yeah. Because like I see all this trivia, and I don't know how much is true, but it seemed like everybody in the cast got points on this movie. It's like, well, where does the studio make money? And apparently, it's like there's plenty to money to go around after spending that. Because they made like 175 domestically on a $10 million budget, so it's like that's huge. And
I don't know how many years or how long they get points though. I'm not sure if that's just like domestic release only, and then.
Yeah, well, yeah, there's different things. There's like points, which is like lifetime of the movie, and then there's like gross points, which is just kind of like domestic release. And it's like sometimes, it does have like a window where that will be divvied out, and then after that, like the studio retains all the money ever created on it or something like that. Because I always heard the famously, and I don't even know if it's true. It just could be just a rumor that like Jack Nicholson got like the good points on Batman, and that basically like paid for the rest of his life because
Yeah, he just didn't care after that. Yeah.
yeah, because like they paid him like like 10 million to be in the movie, but he got like 10% of like not the gross, but like the net profits or something like that, and so he basically made like $50 million off that movie and continues to make money off it today, and just never has to work again.
Just shows up at Lakers games crazy, like just coked out of his mind. Like,
Yep.
yeah, there's Jack.
Still doing it.
Still, it's proof that like cocaine doesn't kill you. Well, yeah, I mean, what was it like? They built 52 sets for this movie. 3 of them lasted after production. Rest of them were destroyed. They built the equivalent of 30 stories worth of sets. If you stack them up, they weren't.
Yeah.
They didn't build a 30-story set, but if you put them together, it's like, yeah, almost nothing is left from the movie because it was almost all destroyed. And Steve McQueen, well, we haven't really. Oh, we'll get to that later. We'll talk about when he shows up because he hasn't even showed up yet. We're
Yeah.
45 minutes into the movie. He's not even here yet.
Then we cut to they're rolling out the red carpet for this opening event. Harley Harley Claiborne, that's the Fred Astaire character, is getting ready for I wrote the event. I'm not sure, like, I think I missed like what his overall goal. He ends up like going on a date with somebody, but he's also like a thief or something, or a con artist or
He's
something.
a con man. Yeah, he's an aging gigolo. He's gonna con this woman out of her money.
Oh, okay.
She's a nice lady.
And she ends up falling for him anyways. It's like...
Literally, yes.
So yeah, Harley shows up for his date, knocks on the door, and like, yeah, she seems to be casually getting ready. She's like sits down. I was like, yeah, we don't gotta worry about it. We'll get there when we get there.
Let's smoke before we go.
Then we cut to Doug starts going through like the electrical blueprints because like Robert's like balking on this. He's like, yeah, I'll get them to you. That's gonna take like 2 weeks to get that together. So here they're just going together with the blueprints they have. Which is probably real then. So
yeah.
Oh man, we have like we have a bunch of blueprints. It's like a part of our business stuff. Is like, hey, when you buy this stuff, like we're gonna make all these elaborate blueprints, and you're gonna have a booklet of your building and all that stuff, and digital now too. And so, what's the? Yeah, because I always heard about like blueprints, like that's what the building is like. That's what makes up the building and what it's built with. But then there's like a, there's like a different name for like the actual final thing where they're called as-builts.
Yeah.
Or sometimes they're called red line items, I believe.
I've heard the as-built. I haven't heard the other one.
I think that just might be a different term where it's like something is adjusted on it with a red line. Because an as-built is like, means it's like, okay, here were the blueprints to build the building, and then afterwards we redraw things. It's like, here's how the building is actually built.
Yeah. Yeah, one's the instructions and the other one's the result.
Yeah.
Same thing.
Yep, exactly. Which I was, so as-built wasn't a term I or even learned about till like 5 months ago, so that was new to me. Let's see here. Yeah, I was waiting for them to go over to HVAC stuff, but it was really just kind of, they go over building structure and like kind of like the electrical diagrams, and then some of the like water piping. They don't really get into the HVAC stuff, so that's fine. I was just waiting for that to pop up.
Oh yeah,
because I too am learning about how these buildings are put together. So I was actually kind of weirdly prepped for this movie and how the stuff was going on, where it's like people interested in how a building works and what happens when a fire breaks out, and like what are all the different areas you have to worry about, and what if everything fails.
How do they maintain water pressure? Where does the sewage go?
Which they don't answer all those questions. They just kind of approach them as like, oh, these characters are thinking about it. It's not just random stuff happening. Because again, like Doug built this building, or he designed this building, so he's not the bad guy. The bad guy is the people who built the building.
Doug is the dreamer.
Yeah, yeah.
James and Roger, they're the capitalists. They're the hard-nosed realists. That it's like you don't want to know how the sausage is made.
Oh yeah, it's Roger. I think I accidentally called him Robert. I'll probably do that again. So
Yeah, or Richard Chamberlain. It's easier just to go by the actual people's names. There's so many side characters and different things going on. It's like, okay,
yeah, we got a lot of people to kill off. So
yeah, we're not going to cover them all.
yeah, because I didn't write down like who like Doug has this like his buddy here, and I didn't write down this guy's name because he's just gonna die in like half an hour anyways.
Yeah.
Senator Parker, Robert Vaughn shows up. What's Robert Vaughn's most famous stuff? He's been in tons of things, but I'm trying to.
Man from Uncle.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. So yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, because the director worked on that. So.
Yeah.
He shows up. They talk about like an urban renewal project, which I'm not sure if he's the senator of this state or what state. I'm presuming of this state because.
Credited as U.S. Senator.
Okay.
So I'm assuming he's one of the 2 senators from California.
Okay.
They only get 2.
Yeah, they're making it seem like, yeah, we're just going to build these buildings everywhere, and like for what reason? Just to house people, or what's this going to do? And it's like, to be big.
This is going to replace housing projects. It's like Mega City 1.
Well, they did start construction on, was that Neom City or whatever? And
Yeah, it's happening.
Yeah. So they're dedicating the building as the tallest in the world. They got like these giant scissors to cut it, and it has some trouble cutting the ribbon, which is probably supposed to be a bad omen. I don't know.
Yeah, it's like the bottle not breaking on the ship.
Yeah.
It's like, oh no, it's a problem.
They turn on all the generators to light up the tower. We got Dan Bigelow, Robert Wagner. He I don't know what's his job. He's just kind of around.
He's a PR guy for the building. He's like the public face of the building.
He gets some alone time. Like he goes up to his room because he also has his own room that seems like he has like the whole floor to himself.
Yeah.
And he tells like one of his secretaries that like, yeah, turn off the phones. I don't want to be bothered. And then he goes and has sex with the other secretary. That's his wife or something. I don't know. I don't know.
It's his secretary. It's his personal secretary.
Yeah, but like it's like
they're not married.
Okay. Yeah. But are they married to other people, or is this just is this
the way they're acting? I'm assuming this is an affair.
Okay.
No, it's
that's
not
what I was
really
wondering.
made clear.
Yeah. That's the only thing I was wondering about. It's like is this just like they found love and just happened to be they working together, or is this some like illicit affair? But you don't really know. But
now, everything in this movie has a subtext.
Then we cut to some like lady folk singers like performing at a stuffy party, which I don't know. This must be very 70s, I guess. I don't know. It's like have this mismatch of the end of the 60s colliding with like these business coked out magnates of the 70s.
Yeah, it's weird. We're gonna have Maureen McGovern belting out the tunes, to a bunch of like Nixon guys. Like, oh wow, live music. That's interesting.
Jim gets the good booze for the senator.
Yep.
Which I don't know what booze this is. I'm not sure is this just wine or what is this? Do you know what this is?
I don't know what it is.
Okay.
I never understood because it was some kind of whiskey or something.
Okay.
I don't know.
Yeah, because it made it seem like one of those myths where like there was a ship full of whiskey and this is the only thing that survived or something like that.
Yeah, at the bottom of the ocean for 100 years. It was turned, by the hand of Queen Elizabeth. With souls captured in the bottle. Drink up.
We cut to Doug.
I've had like shots of like $200 bottles of whiskey and scotch and stuff. It is different. There's something about it, but I couldn't imagine just like I'm gonna get drunk off of this. Like, that seems like a terrible miss. Like this should be shared with like 30 people.
Yeah, we have to portion this out for how much money is spent on.
I'm just gonna drink directly from the bottle.
Pour some on your shirt.
Yeah.
We cut to Doug's on some floor. He's checking a fuse box. He says it's running too hot. Uh, Here he finds out the whole building is lit up, and so he tells the electrical facility to turn them off. And so they turn off all the exterior lights and hoping to, like, nothing will happen. Um, then we come back to the security department. And they finally see like the smoke coming out of the utility room and say there's a fire on 81.
Which has been on fire either for 50 minutes or 4 hours. You lose sense of time in this. Like that room, like the cabinet should be melting. Like the steel in the cabinet should just be like folding up like taffy at this point.
Yeah. Then we cut to the firefighter scrambling, which this happens like, I don't know, like 5 times. They just have all the different departments coming here eventually.
It's a 5-alarm fire. 5 different battalions are involved.
I mean, it was cool seeing them get out all the stuff and how different that stuff is to today's stuff.
Oh yeah. Well, this was interesting. Like, yeah, because this is when Steve McQueen shows up.
Yeah.
And they had to custom make his helmet to film him, because an actual fire helmet, like it's almost like you have like 120 degrees of view in an actual fire helmet, because it's designed to protect your face and stuff. And it's like, yeah, it's kind of like almost like, oh, we can't film Steve McQueen in his Mandalorian fire helmet. We don't know who he is. So there's a lot of scenes where he's not wearing his helmet, where actually firemen would always be wearing, because they wouldn't want a brick to clip him on the head or something.
Yeah, because there's a part where he goes up in an elevator while the building's on fire, and the elevator's next to the fire, goes up and then takes all his stuff off to go talk to Jim.
Yeah.
It's like, that seemed weird.
Well, it was because it was really hot and uncomfortable to film and all that equipment.
Yeah.
Because like the helmet was actually custom made. All the fire equipment was just like costuming. It was just actual fire equipment. It's like, yeah, stuff's hot and miserable, and it's like, you won't burn up though. That's the bonus.
Then we cut back to like a guard is going to open up the utility room that has smoke in it, and then Will Giddings, he was like Doug's right hand man. He's like no, and he goes to like tackle him, and as the guard gets tackled out of the way, but Giddings just basically the room explodes as it gets more air to expand outwards or whatever.
As we learned from the movie Backdraft, creates a funnel cascade effect, or that's actually a real thing. It's like, the room just is, the air's superheated. There's not enough oxygen in there for it to burn bright. But as soon as you introduce oxygen, it's like a bomb goes off. And there's actually a YouTube video that shows the physics of how it works. And it's like, oh yeah, it's like a hand grenade going off in your face. You can do that. And you get burned up at the same time. It's like 2 awful things at once.
So yeah, Giddings gets put on fire. He's got walking around in fire for a long time. They grab some like drapes and put it out of him, but he either dies here or dies later, but like he eventually just dies.
Yeah, he just die of shock if that really happens.
And then Doug here is kind of like, dumbfounded, and here's where like OJ takes charge, and he's like telling everybody what to do. It's like, you go get the hose and start putting on the fire, and like, hey Doug, call the ambulance, and he has to tell it to him. It's like, hey man, go call the ambulance. Which, that's how you're supposed to delegate those things in those situations. You don't say, hey, somebody call an ambulance, because then nobody will call the ambulance. You point at somebody and go, you call 911 or whatever.
Yeah. Or like at work, they tell us, don't call 911, call the special emergency. And everyone's like, wonder what that's all about. Like, that's called cover up. But I didn't say that. I'm just kidding. Never mind.
The utility closet basically becomes a flamethrower at this point. I mean, they're just hitting it with a hose. I feel like it should go out, but I don't know. I guess.
The fire closet's weird in this. It's like a black hole. It's like, we can't stop this. Looks like, who left the fire flamethrower on?
Doug calls Jim and tells him they need to evacuate because there's more fires are possible. Of course, Jim doesn't do this. It's like, it's too far away. Like, at this point I didn't know where the promenade was, so I thought like the fire was above them, not below them. So, which I guess makes more sense, because the fire's gonna rise up and climb the building. So,
yeah.
But then at some point in the model, they have like the fire at one point, and then there's a fire that just happens down below, that the origin of which has never happened. They just started lighting the model on fire, I guess.
Yeah, I think it's like it's spread and whatever internal structures there is like just go with it. We're only going to get this. We got one shot.
um. Let's see here. We have some firefighters, like as they're on the way over, they talk about not wanting to fight a fire in a tower, and they're like, "I hope it's on the first floor," which they don't necessarily explain this, but yeah, they do bring it. They basically bring up the idea that like this is the worst fire you can have is in a skyscraper.
Yeah,
So,
it is terrifying. It actually gives me nightmares. Like this movie actually bothered me, like in a way, like something like Event Horizon, like even though it's more graphically horrifying, it's like, no, this really happens. Like, and this
Yeah.
did happen in a spectacular way. But it's like, no, I just can't imagine. It's like you got to go do this. Like, no, there's no way. It's like,
Well, this stuff keeps happening even on smaller scale. Remember, there was that like fire in the UK where it was like a residential building tower
oh yeah, the
thing.
Grenville Towers. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it was a nightmare. Well, because they made the building into a chimney.
Yeah.
It was like the worst, and it was building material, cladding that was so flammable. Even we were like, we won't do this in America. It's like this is illegal here. So it's like, huh, okay.
So yeah, the firefighters arrive on scene. Here we have Chief O'Halloran. This is played by Steve McQueen. He shows up, talks with Doug, and then he starts setting up the command. So they set the command up on like the 81st floor. Or no, I think it's the 79th floor. I think that's where his office is. So it's below the fire.
Yeah.
Yeah, here Doug mentioned something about like not being able to fight a fire above the 70th floor, but you guys keep building the towers bigger, and I don't know what that specific means. Like,
Their pumping trucks can't pump the water that high.
Oh, okay, all right.
That's actually a real thing I heard, but I've heard like in the 80s they figured out ways around that because they just started putting redundant pumping stations in the actual buildings.
Yeah.
But that was dependent on getting feed water from the city, which like there's a lot of things that happen when airplanes slammed into these buildings that like immediately went offline because there wasn't. It's like, well, we've imagined this scenario, but no, this isn't really going to happen. It's like, oh, but yeah, I think it was because they couldn't pump water that high.
Yeah, because he did like Doug did give him some like statistics on like what the water pressure was on each level or something like that.
Yeah.
So like that makes sense. We got the firefighters up on 81. They say the fire is running the ceiling. So he has them like start spraying the ceiling to try to prevent that. But nothing prevents this fire. It just keeps going.
Which is weird because it's like, as I understood, they skimped on the cladding so they're basically like they overheated their electrical system.
Yeah.
But it's like, but this building seems to be made out of like paper mache. Like, well, they just build. It's like, we built it out of construction paper soaked in gasoline. Like, what the hell is this building made of? But it's you got to move the story along.
Yeah. The chief heads to the promenade. This is where he gets in the elevator next to the fire, and it's like on 100 or something. They tell Jim to vacate the tower. Jim reluctantly agrees to do that, and so now there's a slight panic as they start evacuating. But they're evacuating through the service elevators, which is like right next to the fire.
Yeah.
Then the fire explodes and blows out some windows and works its way up the building, like through the windows, which is like, I guess, sort of neat. It's like, oh yeah, this is all terrifying.
Yeah.
This fire wants to do nothing better than climb, and it's got a whole ladder it can do that with. The building.
Like Donald Sutherland says, the animal will get away from you.
That's probably another. You probably got to do backdraft at some point. That's a movie.
Oh yeah, I love that. But again, it's like this. The only job that scares me is like fireman. It's like the ultimate. Like, oh god, this job is a nightmare.
Because I've only seen parts of that movie. I've never actually seen it all the way through. So.
Oh, it's a interesting movie.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, if fire was like a serial killer. It's like, okay. I mean, parts of it are dumb, but parts of it are really cool.
Well, yeah, also I know it's like one of the most like as like basically the last of a movie of its kind where like we're using real fire to shoot
Yeah.
it with, and it did it in such a spectacular way, and now they just do it all with CGI, which is way safer. And yeah, you don't need to do that stuff anymore, but also it's like, it's CGI, so it just seems lamer, and because that there's not real danger there.
Yeah, what's cool about this whole movie is like I get a sense of real danger.
Yes.
Even though I know this is a special effect, but that's also Paul Newman hanging on to that decaying structure. Like he's actually doing that. Now there might be a bunch of pads below him and he's only 5 feet off the ground, but it still looks dangerous.
um Then we get to have a bunch of firefighters are like knocking down the ceiling so it just doesn't fall on them later.
Yeah.
Um,
Dabney Coleman is one of those guys. He's like one of the firemen too. Like, is this his
no,
first movie?
no. He's not one of the firefighters.
Or
He's Dabney Coleman is like. Remember when they come up with the crazy plan to blow up the tanks? He's one of the Navy guys.
oh, I thought he was a fireman.
No, I mean it could be, but I know Dabney Coleman is one of the Navy guys.
Oh, I just thought the firemen just had like plastic explosives back then or something. Like,
Well,
I
I mean, I guess so, because they say that the chief's the only person that's able to do this. He's the only one qualified, and then so apparently, like, he's the only guy qualified, and they just happen to have all the C4, and he's the only one that knows how to use it. So, but then those other firefighters just use C4, and so,
I thought it was in their coat pockets. Like,
yeah,
okay,
yeah.
tank, check, coat, helmet, check, plastic explosives, check. I mean, it wouldn't matter if you walked into a fire with plastic explosives.
Yeah, yeah.
It won't burn. I mean, it'll
Oh,
burn.
it'll
but
burn, but it
explode.
won't explode. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, because
Oh, yeah. I thought this was actually Dabney Coleman's like 8th movie.
huh?
I thought this was like his first movie because I saw him. I was like, is that the mustache guy? Yes.
Yeah, I don't think. Yeah, I don't think he has a mustache here, but yeah.
No, he doesn't. But I put it on his face and like that's him.
Yeah, the elevator. Oh yeah, like so this is where you come into. I think at some point I think Jim. Oh yeah. So yeah, no, the fire's also moving up the elevator, and this is where Jim gets the advice like, hey, people need to take the scenic elevators, which are these external elevators where you can see outward onto the city, rather than the express elevators, which are much bigger. And so he's like, yeah, we need to take that way. But then a bunch of people just hop in the elevator and take the express elevator anyways. A lot of stupid panic in this movie, but it ends up in spectacular deaths. So that's why you do it.
Yeah, that's
Because here the elevator stops at the floor of the fire, opens up, and they're all screaming. And then like the chief is like trying to douse them out. And then the elevator goes back up, and then just everybody's dead inside except for one guy who walks out and then dies while he's on fire. So it's like that's appropriately horrifying.
yeah. This movie's like surprisingly grim.
Oh
Like,
yeah,
in the death, it's like, oh, they don't really hold back a whole. The only thing is it's not visceral. It's not like in your face, but it's
No.
like yeah, it's pretty bleak.
yeah.
There's not a lot of, there is karmic death in this, but there's also just a lot of random death. Like,
Yeah.
not always the bad people that die.
Yeah. Well, yeah,
It's not just Paul Reiser and aliens. It's like, good, kill him. It's
Yeah.
like, no, there's other people die too. It's, oh damn.
yeah. The good people die. That's what makes it dangerous. It's like karma doesn't always come for you. It's also sometimes death is random.
Yep. I mean, look at this week. I mean, we lost Henry Kissinger. A great sorcerer is down this week. 100 years young. So yeah, it can come for any of us, and it will.
Let's see here. Then we have Dan emerges from his sexcapade to find the building is burning.
He must have really been into it. It's like not to notice this.
Then he and the
Forgot about that. Yeah, it's just like, wow, you guys are really owned in there, aren't you?
he and the secretary like stuff the doors with towels and like prepare to hold up. Then we cut to like the deaf mom and the kids are on the 87th floor. OJ goes to get them. we come back to Dan. He had the phone switched off on the floor, so that's why he can't get the word out. I think he pretends to say like, I think he gets on the phone and pretends to talk to it, and then he was like, "Yeah, I was lying. Like, well, there's no, we can't get out of here. We're dead." Um, but then they like try. So Dan gets a blanket, he wets it, and he starts running through the fiery floor and stuff like that. And then he just like falls through a window and dies.
Yeah.
Then the bedroom is like, I thought he was gonna pop up somewhere. Like he actually made his like, no, his watch like pops up, and it's like, no, he's definitely dead.
Yeah, and his watch had his name on it for
Yeah,
some reason.
yeah, not burnt or anything like that. They had a,
No.
which
Like they didn't pull it out like on a like a skeletal wrist or
yeah.
something. It's
So
just
either
like,
it must have fell off or he took it off or something. I'm not sure.
yeah, we don't know.
And then yeah, then we cut to like the bedroom with the secretary, and it's like getting covered in flames and just blowing up, and then the secretary's like dying of smoke inhalation, so she breaks a window, which like these windows would not be this fragile.
Yeah.
Especially today. So because that's just this is what you call jumping building. You want to
Yeah. Oh,
jump.
yeah. Well, and also another thing too, like think at this time people watching this movie, it's like people jumping out of high rises on fire. What a nightmare. That could never happen. Well, stay tuned.
So yeah, when she breaks a window, the fire just gets more oxygen, so it basically like explodes her out of the window, and then, or no, explodes, and then she leaps to her fire and her death. So
Yeah, she's essentially like engulfed in flames.
yeah.
And by the way, hats off to the stuntmen that were doing this, because you could tell it wasn't the actors, but
Yeah.
it's like to light somebody on fire. That's such a rig, especially at that time to do that, because the actor had his hand over his face or her face. Maybe it was a woman doing it. I don't know. But yeah, it's like when you see how dangerous that is to do in real life, it's like, oh yeah, good on you. It's like that's a crazy.
Well, she also doesn't have pants on in this scene, and then like you can kind of clearly see that they put some kind of like skin like sweatpants on the person to look like skin, but it's clearly not. But
Yeah.
it's like, hey, you're not gonna light a real person's leg on fire. So,
Yeah, have you ever seen that done? Like how they do that?
yeah,
Yeah, it's like you don't have long to film.
no,
It's like because even though he's like protected, he gets super hot really fast.
but yeah, because like the new gels they have, they can basically just burn on you, and you like won't receive any of the heat. Like you'll be totally fine. But the thing that's crazy is that like you can't breathe during that whole time. Like you
Yeah.
can be covered in fire, but like don't breathe or it's going to
Yeah,
be
you
a bad
suck
time.
fire in, yeah.
But you can stay there and be on fire for like half a minute and you'll be fine, especially if eventually somebody comes in and puts out the fire. But it's still a dangerous and weird, and you're covered in the weird goop.
Yeah.
That is
No
protecting you, and it's protecting you, and it's also the thing that is catching on fire.
Yeah.
Let's see here. Let's see here. Wait, yeah, we cut to OJ and Doug go and get the deaf lady and kids, like their apartment's on fire. They get everyone out of the rooms. And it's weird because like I'm not sure if I missed something, but OJ gets the deaf lady out of the room, and then she disappears from the movie. I don't think do they stop and say she's dead or something? Like I
don't recall what. I just know it's like her and the kids get saved, I thought.
Yeah, well, because like the kids and Marlene go with Doug,
Mm-hmm.
and then OJ like gets the deaf lady out, lays her down, and then gets the cat, and then they're just gone from the movie until the end. Except the deaf lady never shows up again.
I don't know. I don't see her die, but you're right. At the end, I don't know. Maybe she didn't make it.
So I don't know if they like made a point to be like, yeah, she died, but like I tried to go back and look at it and I didn't find any. But it's not important. It was just one of those weird things I picked up. It's like, wait, what happened to her?
Oh yeah. There's like I said, there's so many side stories in this. You just lose track.
Yeah. Yeah. Then they cut to the model and you see that there's fires on 3 different floors. We cut back to the center. Cinder's on the promenade. He suggests getting the fit people to like use the stairs, and so they open up one stairwell and it's filled with smoke, and they're like, "No, can't do that." And then they go to the other stairwell and it's just stuck. It's like, huh, what's going on there? It's like nothing but stupidity. A third firehouse is being dispatched to the tower. We show the chief like reloading his air tank. So what do they say on the tank? Does it just say scuba tank on there?
I always thought they were called Scott packs, but I don't know if that's newer or not.
Oh, okay. I can't remember what was written on the tanks. I know they have like cooler, way lighter tanks now. Like all that stuff is like way lighter now.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. They can make them out of lighter materials and stuff like magnesium or something.
Yeah.
Because we have them at work. If like certain things blow up, like I know where 3 of them are. You can just grab them out of that box and put them on. They're only good for like 20 minutes though.
Yeah.
And if it's a big fat person like me breathing, it's going to be actually quicker. So, but it'll get you out of the building.
Yeah. We cut to Doug and his group, which is like the kids and Marlene. They're working their way down the stairs when a gas line just blows up the stairwell.
Yeah, and it blows it up. It's like someone fired artillery into the floor or something.
Yeah, I don't know how these stairwells are made, because that didn't really make a lot of sense to me, because I was like, wait, how did the stairs disappear? But yeah, it just does, so whatever.
Yeah, it's just kind of a thing. It's like, oh, gas line, everyone knows what that's going to be explosive. It's like, yeah, it's going to blast through like tons of concrete and stuff. Like, okay, yeah. They build the stairs out of styrofoam. I mean, yeah, you don't know.
So Doug has to acrobat his way down like what's left of the stairs, which is just basically like just a mangle of the railing, and that they climb down like it's a weird ladder or something. It's like what if your ladder was made out of crazy straws? That's what's left here.
Yeah.
And so the teenage kid, he like makes his way down, but then Doug has to like climb back up to like get the girl to like hold on to him as he climbs back down again. And then Mrs. Mueller makes her way down. Which here they kind of make a point where like, it seems like she's afraid of heights and she's stricken with fear. Which I thought they were just going to kill her right here, because it seemed like the obvious point. Like, why have everybody successfully navigate this thing? But they do, so whatever.
Yeah, it builds tension, and it doesn't happen.
Yeah, and I guess it's sadder later on, because it's like you feel like, oh, if they survive one event, then they should survive the rest of this.
Yeah, this is their throw of the dice, and they've won.
That's always what kind of like bummed out about in Sunshine, because like Chris Evans' character survives so many times while other people die the stupidest deaths, and then he ends up dying anyways. You're like, come on.
Let one guy live.
Like I know like, you know, they're gonna blow up a bomb in the sun, so yeah, they all gotta die eventually. But I mean, it's not the plan for them to all die in a bomb. They're supposed to be able to like get away first, but yeah.
Well, I don't know if Cillian Murphy ever dies, because he's kind of caught in this like temporal gravity of the sun. So a nuclear explosion to him might take 1,000,000 years.
Let's see here. The firefighters are making their way up a stairwell. Oh, they're making their way up the other stairwell, the one that has the blocked door. But this stairwell blows up as well. So 2 stairwells down. So now they can't go down that stairwell. Because this is where I got confused, because they get to the top of the stairwell, and I was like, okay, they're at the promenade, but this is where the stairwell ends. Is there like another stairwell? The stairwell doesn't go to the roof, and that's where I realized, like, oh, no, the stairwell to the roof is inside the promenade, so.
Yeah.
But yeah, but they haven't reached the top yet, so they decide once they see the stairwell get blown out, they're like, well, the only way's up. So then we cut to like outside. The Navy shows up, and so they're trying to get together an air rescue team. So they're like, yeah, we're gonna put helicopters on the roof like we did in the first part of the movie. But then all of a sudden, it's too windy to do that. Yeah, all the helicopter stuff really makes no sense. They you know, it's like. They
throw helicopters away like they're free.
Yeah.
Like, it's like we're going to do one stupid thing after another.
Well, it's just how, like,
let's get right next to the building and pull people
Yeah.
up, and the blades don't hit the building, but they hit the building in an earlier scene. Same damn helicopter, just I mean, it's the same one, but it's supposed to be a different one. It's like, huh? They
Yeah, well,
just shorten the blades.
well, there's also stuff like it's too windy, but it's like it's not too windy for it to be, you know, like 600 feet in the air, but it's too windy for it to be 1,000 feet in the air. And I don't know the logistics on that at all. It just seems convenient for the movie as to when and when they cannot use helicopters. So.
I just know the coolest time in helicopters and buildings was Die Hard. Considering they filmed that and they could never film that again. It's like that's a one and done.
Which I guess we should bring up now. Like this is the inspiration for Die Hard.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Because Roderick Thorpe saw this and then he wrote the book Nothing Lasts Forever, which is the book that became Die Hard.
Yep.
Which isn't really about a building being on fire, but you can definitely see Die Hard in this movie. Although I feel like Die Hard does everything better. But Die Hard's not about a building being on fire. It's about a terrorist situation. And
yeah, in Die Hard, the building should have been on fire several times, but it actually worked as designed.
Yeah.
So yeah, you can like set off like 50 pounds of plastic explosives in an elevator shaft and take out a floor, but it's like, well, the building will, like you said, isolate the fire and damage it, cut the power, and it's like, yeah, it won't burn then.
Let's see here. Doug gets the promenade door. Oh yeah, he has to like, yeah. Okay, yeah, they get to the promenade door in the stairwell, and there's just randomly an overturned concrete wheelbarrow that's dried and blocking the door.
Yeah.
Why was that there? Why was it allowed to dry? Why was it wet in the first place?
Oh, you don't know the building trades guys. It's like, hey, let's mix up this thing of concrete. Oh, it's 3:30. Time to go. Dump it out on the floor. We'll pick this shit up tomorrow. They ain't paying me after this. We'll just let this shit harden up and block the door. Because if you it's like if once you mix concrete, you have anywhere from a half an hour to like 4 hours before it hardens. It's not like we can leave it in a liquid state and we'll come in tomorrow and pour the elixir and then it'll harden. It's like, no. So yeah, no, I don't know why this happened. But I can imagine a couple guys like, hey, it's time to go. We gotta get some cold ones. Let's let this hard concrete harden up here. It'll be fun to clean up tomorrow.
I mean, I guess they must have been working on something in the promenade with a concrete like feature, and then like they're like, no, get it out of here, and they just shoved it in the stairwell, I guess.
Yeah.
That's the only excuse I can give it. I just know this is weird. It seems stupid.
It's a strange, it is incongruous. It's like nobody does this. Not even the laziest idiots I know. And trust me, I know some lazy idiots.
So Doug makes his way through like a maintenance shaft, and it's just like a giant shaft of pipes, and it's making weird sounds. It's like it becomes 2001: A Space Odyssey all of a sudden.
Yeah, if they just started moving in zero gravity, I would still be with it. It's like, this is so weird. Like, this is why the building's so tall. Gravity doesn't work. So, all right, cool, whatever. Everyone's just like moving along slowly.
And it's just a giant shaft. At first I thought, like, is this an elevator shaft? It's like, no, this is just where the pipes go, which I think they mentioned before. Like, this is a pipe shaft or something like that. So,
what are you doing, Dave?
Going to the pipe shaft, Hal. Oh.
I think you should take a stress pill and we should talk about this.
The generator room loses power and the backup generators aren't kicking in.
Of course not.
Yeah.
They never do. Here, Fukushima.
Cut to Doug. What the hell? Oh, yeah. Doug, like... Yeah, I think Doug gets on the promenade, and then he stares over at the roof of the tower next door, so he's like, that's a thing. Oh, no, this is Jim doing that. Jim stares at the tower.
Yeah.
They just want to put the idea in the audience's head that, like, hey, that's going to be involved somehow. Then we cut to a burning firefighter falls to her death in the elevator shaft, and the chief and his crew decide they need to like rappel and get through the elevator because it's like, that's the only way down. One firefighter is like scared, and he's like, well, we'll let you go first so you don't fall on top of us. So that seems to lighten things up where he just like, all right, I guess I'll do it.
I think that was Paul Newman's son.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's Scott Newman.
Huh.
Yep.
At least he's better than Scott Eastwood.
What's he doing now? Is he still acting?
Yeah, I don't know. He seems to me, he's like the most improbable actor to me because like everything he's in, he's not good, but it's like people still keep trying to make him a movie star.
Yeah.
So they just keep putting him in movies. Like he's not good. Oh well.
What can you do?
I mean, he's like handsome and like people seem to like him, but he's never good in anything. I don't know. There's some like smaller movies he did where he's like the only person in the movie, so it's like he might be better in those ones. I've always seen him in like where he's like supposed to be like he's like the third build guy in like one of the Fast and Furious movies, and like you don't even know he's there because he's so like one dimensional and invisible.
Huh.
And then he's like, I think it's in like, he think he's in the 8th movie, and it was like supposed to be like, yeah, this is like Paul Walker's replacement, and then they don't bring him on for 9 or 10 because they're like, no, he's not good.
That's too bad.
I don't know. That's my perspective on Scott Eastwood. I don't know if you even know like movies he's been in or have an opinion on him, but
I don't know anything about. I know I think he was in Pacific Rim, wasn't he?
I don't know. Maybe that's the thing. It's like because he was also in. He was like one of the special forces guys in Suicide Squad.
Okay.
And he's like third build in that movie. And I was like, I don't even remember who the hell he was or what he was in that movie. He just disappeared.
I think he was in the movie about the computer guy that blew the whistle on the Obama spot or the domestic spying thing, Snowden.
Yeah.
He was in that movie too. I think he just did something. But anyway,
yeah,
we got a lot of ground to cover in a short time to do it. So.
My notes are almost near the end. So
okay.
Well, actually, oh no, I guess Act 3 is kind of long. So again, an almost 3-hour movie. It needed to be. So they work their way down the shaft. Everyone survives that. Doug gets their promenade. The firefighter's going to blow open the door of C4. Doug reunites with Susan. There's still no way down. So now there's, I guess no. Yeah. So the exterior elevators aren't working because they don't have power. The interior elevators are on fire and the stairwells are blown up. So they've effectively. You see their doom in front of them. So
yeah, they're effectively all avenues have been pinched off.
Yeah, except for the roof. That's still available for the moment.
Yeah.
But even though they tell everybody, it's like, yeah, stairwell's out, Roger decides he can make it down. He gets blown up in the stairwell, but he's still alive, though, so he makes his way back, and he just starts drinking. And he looks like he has, like, he's got a comically charred suit now.
Yeah. Got a crusty suit.
Yeah. And, of course, everybody can still hear, which, like, all these people should be deaf by now.
Yeah, it's all kinds of high explosions going off, yeah.
The chief and the Navy are working to get a line from one tower to the other. This is where it gets weird because it's like, we can't get a chopper on the top of the roof. But it's like, we also can't shoot a line across. It's like, yeah, but you can get a helicopter and shoot a line in. It's like, yeah, we can do that. It's like, they're basically at the same height. I don't know why you can do these things and not the other thing. Whatever.
Because it's cool.
Robert comes back he comes back to prom and he starts drinking. Doug confronts Jim about skimping on building safety. Jim insists everything was done to code, which this is fun here because Doug's like now it's the opposite. Now people hate like what a building code is because it's like it's going too far. You're now making people build things way too expensively and have to waste time making things more complicated. Where here it's like the opposite. It's like the code's not good enough. Like this building's too advanced. You need to have a stricter code of your own. And they're like, no, we built everything by code. It was all inspected. It's like, no, you don't realize it's not good enough. So now it's the opposite. Now people don't believe the code is good enough and it's unnecessary. But here it's like the good enough code is going to get you killed.
Yeah. Well, it's the code was it was been written by lobbyists, you know.
It's too windy to get choppers in, so they want to set up a breacher's buoy, which that's where they're going to set up like a zip line between the towers, which I've never heard that term before, breacher's buoy.
Oh, those have been around since like the days of sail.
Okay.
Kind of like it's a way to get people off. Mainly it's used like in ships. Like to get people from one ship to another.
Okay.
In fairly calm seas. Can't do it in like violent seas, but yeah.
Yeah, dump some oil in the sea, I'll calm it down.
Yeah. Light on fire.
Everyone moves all the stuff away from the windows because they're going to start breaking all the windows so they can get the zip line going. They decide to go ahead and attempt an airlift, so Doug wants to send all the women and children first. They do a blind draw for all the women and children to see who's going to get it because they're like, I'm going to get 12 people up there or something like that. The women line up on the roof, and then as the helicopter's starting to land, a couple of ladies like run towards the chopper, and this apparently scares the chopper pilots, and they immediately crash the helicopter.
Yeah, which is dumb. It's like, just landing. I don't care. You know, you get sucked up into the rotors and get chopped to pieces. It's like I'm not going to die as a result of that. So it won't be the worst day of my life if you do something stupid.
Let me see. Doug is cutting wires to stuff, which wasn't sure what he was doing at first here, but what he's doing, he's like. And the firemen start breaking open the windows, and apparently Doug is praying like a gravity brake on the elevator. So he's basically like, it'll just go down, but it won't go up. But it'll still have like it'll slowly descend its way down. So like we'll get people on that. Another helicopter shows up, and they shoot a line in the room. I like how the line's like really small. It's like that doesn't seem like it's gonna give out, but then it's just holding on to a bigger, thicker line. It's like, all right, now that makes sense.
Yeah. This is when we have like a 20-minute like tying scene. It's like we're just gonna do things with wire and rope.
Yeah, all the men work together to pull this rope in, and like they tie it off, and they all know how to tie and do ropes and stuff like that. I mean, they tie it all over the place, so it's
they just tie it up 1,000 times.
An explosion blows up the scenic elevator as they're going down. Well, not completely. Like, kind of knocks it off his track. It's still held there, and then Marlene like falls to her death, and like they kind of have this puppet awkwardly fall, but then it bounces off it, and then that just makes it seem more awful. Even though it looks silly, it's like, she didn't deserve that.
It was comic and horrifying at the same time because she
died.
Was the one, like, she saved those kids, and she basically forgave Fred Astaire for being a con man and said, "I still like you. We can grow old together the rest of our lives." And she was like a really decent person. And now she bounces off a building on her way. Which, by the way, she would have like exploded in the real world if her body hit a building from that high on the way down. But
this also just reminded me of the thing in Titanic where the guy hits the propeller as he's falling down. It's like,
oh yeah. Bong. Wow. Dark.
You almost hit the water, but instead you hit the screw. The chief gets asked what he wants to do, and so he wants to hook a chopper up to the elevator and bring it down. They get the breacher buoy set up, and they start taking people across one at a time. So you're like, oh, this isn't gonna gonna get everybody.
Not gonna work.
Because it takes them like 15 minutes to get one person across. The chief is gonna hook up the chopper to the elevator, and he torches the cable off. He gets the cable cut, and then like the explosion knocks the firefighter that was in the elevator like off, and he's just holding on to him, and the chief's holding on to him as a descent. They spend a lot of time like, he's like switching hands. He has both hands, then he has one hand, and then eventually he drops, but you can see that there's a pad below that the guy falls onto. So it's, I made it. I'm guessing that must be Paul Newman's son there. So
yeah.
because he was the white firefighter up in the promenade. And then the elevators safely landed on the ground. So it's like, well, that ended well. So because everything's going wrong. So that'd be in Act 2. Got Act 3. There's like a hallway of like broken down people and firefighters being attended to by nurses and doctors, and here the chief is like taking a rest because it's like he's just been doing everything for. I mean, he's been like running around the whole time. He's even like bringing people in to give other crews rest, but he hasn't rested the entire time. So this is like his one rest period. Some people grab him and they bring him down to like another architectural engineer. And I wrote, hey, it's Dabney Coleman. He's like one of the Navy guys here.
Oh, okay.
So what they want to do, apparently, you saw the tanks earlier, like, because like when Doug was crawling through the maintenance shaft, you see walk by these huge tanks, and apparently there's like 1 million gallons of water. And this is above the promenade, which I don't understand the architecture whatsoever, because I'm like, that's a huge room to be above the promenade, and then there's a helicopter pad there. So I don't understand the architecture here, but whatever. So yeah, they want to blow up the 1 million gallons of water and have it just fall on the fire down below. And apparently the chief is the only one qualified to do this, and it's also heavily inferred that this is a suicide mission. He's like, oh shit, which I think is like the only swear word in the movie.
Yeah.
Doug gets a call at the plan. So they say they have like 15 minutes before like everything's gonna burn up. Everyone's gonna die in the promenade. There's like a mini mutiny with the basket, and so like 5 people fall to their death. Is the senator one of them, or does the senator survive?
The senator's trying to pull Robert Vaughn, the senator, is trying to pull Richard Chamberlain out of the basket, and it just ends up going out with overweight, and then the line breaks, and like Richard Chamberlain like screams and falls to his death for like a minute. It goes on a long time.
Yeah, he's the only person that really deserves to die in the movie, so it's like it's like, okay, a good death. The chief's getting put in a special fire suit that just I don't know if this is a real thing or not, but it's all
big silver suits.
Yeah,
they used to use those in like the hell fighters that would fight oil well fires.
Oh, okay. But it seems like the flaw with it is that it doesn't have an oxygen tank with it. So
yeah, well, also it's like the flaw with those in real life is like the air is still super heated around you regardless. So
yeah,
it's because the oxygen tanks will the hoses will melt. Because you ever read about hell fighting, like fighting the well fires? It's like because you hear crazy stuff like the Russians used a nuclear bomb to stop well fire. It's like, that sounds insane, but then you realize how insane a well fire is. It's like, oh, well, yeah, it's, a nuclear weapon seems in order. That's a whole different thing.
The people in the promenade start tying themselves down because they're about to have 1 million gallons of water drop on top of them. So that's an interesting thing. It's like, oh yeah, like that. We were worried about fire. Now we have to be worried about water, and the water pushing us through the open windows we intentionally broke open.
Yeah, and we don't talk about, it's like, oh, water weighs 7 pounds to a gallon, and it's gonna crush our skeletons when it hits us that hard. But we don't.
Yeah, I don't know. I know the idea of it is like we're gonna drop water in the fire, but none of this seems like it'll work out the way it does.
It's always like the same thing. It's like, well, if the plane's going down over the ocean, just jump into the water. And it's like, no, at that height and speed, you might as well jump into concrete. That's what it's going to be like. But it doesn't matter.
They dropped the chief on the.
It's like that thing where like we're gonna jump right as the elevator crashes into the floor. It's like, won't that displace us? It's like, yeah, for a second, then you'll catch up, and your knees will go through your throat. Until then,
they dropped the chief off on the roof, which just seems like, why didn't they just get a roof or why did they get a helicopter with like a like one of those ladders and just have some people hang on?
Yeah, it's like, hey, can we get a few people off before you go put the plastic explosives?
I guess at this point the roof's on fire, so they can't get up there. But I don't know. It just
roof. We're not gonna do that.
We don't need no water. Let the motherfuckers burn.
Burn, motherfucker. Burn.
So yeah, Doug's on his way up with a mask and an oxygen tank. The chief explains like how to set up the C4, Oh no, I think no. Does he explain it here? No, they get to the room and he explains how to use a C4. So now they need to now they need to blow up the tanks, but also they need to blow a hole in the floor, which this all seems like this shouldn't work at all. The chief sets a timer for 5 minutes and then they run. The fire starts making its way into the promenade, and so they're waiting for the timer to go off. And everyone's saying like, "Hey, tie yourself down," but some people are still like running around. um. Oh wait, no, they're making their way down, and then like the chief, like he takes a hit of oxygen, and then he gets like a door to block a fire thing, so then Doug can make his way through because he doesn't have a fire suit. But then like as soon as they get down there, he's like, "I'm burning up," and he takes the suit off, and then everything's fine. He just doesn't have the suit anymore. So
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah, here the fire is like an actual like combatant, and it's like they're actually fighting the fire, like
yeah.
literally. It's trying to get them like a dragon or something.
So yeah, everyone's tied down that's going to, and the explosion goes off. The fire rushes in first, and then that scares people into running away and untying themselves, and then the water starts to rush in. Here, the bartender gets killed by a statue falling, which that's the original captain in Miami Vice.
Yep.
Um,
Gets killed by a styrofoam statue.
yeah, because you see him like he like moves a bit to like authenticate that he's like dying, like his last breath and his blood
Death
cap.
throes, like the statue almost
Yeah,
flips away.
yeah.
Guy has a strong. He just broke his back. Bro. He focused so much energy through it. He's like a monk.
I mean, I think Jim tells him not to tie himself up there because there's too much glass, but then he's killed by a statue, so that's never presented as a problem. So I guess
Yeah, it was like this guy's job loyalty was supposed to be his death. Like the bar would kill him, but
Yeah.
it didn't work out that way.
It's also funny because everyone ties themselves down, but everybody gets knocked loose by by the water, which I guess would be somewhat true. But also, it's not the water pouring in. They're just like they have the water comes in from every angle for whatever, because they don't have a million gallons to dump on these people from above. They're just like having fire hoses and spraying people during scenes and stuff like
Yeah,
that.
because you can't really do that because you'd kill everyone.
A bunch of people get washed out the windows, and so it's like, oh, I almost got on fire, and then I'm getting hit by water. Now I'm falling to my death.
At least you're not burning while you're falling out the window. It's take the good with the bad.
The chief gets washed out of his spot. Like Steve McQueen's doing the stunt here, and this looks kind of gnarly because he gets knocked around pretty good here.
Yeah, actually
does. The water runs down the sides of the building and through the elevator shaft, and so it starts putting out the fire. The chief and Doug survive. Harley and Jim survive. They get down to finally get down to like the first floor. Here Harley learns that Miss Marlene is dead, and OJ gives him her cat. So I guess it's supposed to be that's his penance, I guess.
Your consolation prize.
Jim
can stab this cat to death.
Jim consoles his daughter over the death of the awful Roger, but he's an asshole. He deserved to die. I guess I need to cry, so whatever. Now I get to live in a mansion by myself in San Francisco.
Yeah, just a few tears, honey. Just wet the face a little bit, and then it's fine. We understand. We get it. We're gonna find you a nice gigolo.
And then we have the chief talking to Doug, and he says, they're going to kill 10,000 people in one of these fire traps. I'll keep eating smoke and bringing out bodies until somebody asks us how to build them. And then Doug goes, okay, I'm asking. And Chief goes, you know where to find me. And then the chief drives off into the night.
Yep.
And that's the kind of prescient thing that he says, which is like, oh, yeah, this is what happens in 9/11. Of course, I guess, they didn't expect a plane to start the fire. So.
Yeah, it was always like going to be a structural, like, fire in the walls type stuff.
Yeah.
Not a plane slamming into the building at 500 miles an hour, filling all the shafts and spouts with like burning jet fuel, and then lighting carpet on fire, which I didn't realize carpet can burn at like 3,000 degrees because it's all like synthetic and stuff. Here's the weird thing though. Principal photography wrapped on this film September 11th, 1974. I heard that and I was like, that is bullshit. I looked 5 different places. Everything says, yeah, it's actually that's true. I didn't believe it when I read it. I was like, nope, 2 on the nose. No way. It's like, no, actually, yeah. So yeah, that's everyone's. I mean, I can't find anything that refutes it.
Yeah.
And if, like I said, usually you do 5 sources. I did 7, but they all say the same thing. But they're all movie.
Yeah.
I'm not like going to the New York Times archives. Like when did they file their permit?
Yeah. Go find a crewman. Like, what's your pay stub? What's your last pay stub say?
Yeah. Show me the stub. So yeah, that's weird. But there's all kinds of things that happen on September 11th.
Yeah. You pick any date. Yeah.
Well, I mean, they know why Bin Laden picked that because the farthest
because 11 is like the 210. No.
Well, the reason I believe the historical truth is the farthest the Ottomans and then people from the Middle East ever made it into Europe was called the Siege of Vienna, Austria, and they were defeated. The Persian or the invaders were defeated on the 11th of September in like 1512 or something. And that's when like they couldn't conquer Europe after that, which was basically just paying us back for the Crusades. That was essentially the payback for invading the Holy Lands and getting our ass kicked like 4 times. And by us, I mean pejoratively, like the Northern Europeans that invaded the Middle East. So yeah, but that's a weird. Of all the things, because all you think about watching this movie now is 9/11. Then you find out like, oh, there is a weird, like connection there. But there's also weird connections between Lincoln and Kennedy. Yeah, because you've heard that like before. Like both their vice presidents were named Johnson. They both have the same number of letters in their names. It's like, oh, it doesn't mean anything, but it's also very weird at the same time.
Well, it's all that thing with like Jesus died when whatever age he was, and it's like so did Jimi Hendrix and. Kurt Cobain
or whatever. Yeah.
You can find connections anywhere if you want.
Oh yeah, that's like numerology. That's why it works and it doesn't, because it's like it's delicious nonsense. It's like that must mean something, but I don't know how to capitalize. Like, how can I like get a hot stock tip from this? It's like doesn't happen. Can't get the winning lottery numbers knowing this stuff.
But this was a big movie. It was like the biggest. Well, I'm not sure if it's for this year or for 75. I'm not sure, but
well, this movie and Earthquake came out the same year.
Oh,
it's like same producer and same
and big star-studded cast. So that one had Heston in it. So.
Yep.
This was a huge movie, and much like Airport, which is a huge movie, the cast hated the movie.
Yeah. Everyone got paid, but they kind of regretted it.
Yeah. Which I thought, I know like Turkey's using a pejorative term, but I remember like that's what I think what Dean Martin called Airport of Turkey, and then I read some stuff where it's like that were Paul Newman said this was a turkey, and it's like I'm never doing a movie for the money ever again. And then I realized like, oh yeah, that's why Mystery Science Theater has their Turkey Day Marathon, because it's like that's what you call a bad movie. It's a turkey. So,
this is kind of like doing porn. It's like it pays well, but you regret it.
Yeah, well, it's like none of the characters are really worth a while. Like you like them because they're famous people, in better movies. And here it's just all about the action, which is neat, but yeah.
Well, I didn't enjoy this as much as Airport, because Airport is connected to Airplane, so I can just like Airport seemed funny and fun to me.
Yeah.
This just seemed kind of bleak. And also I do believe like the subtext to this movie. I believe like the 70s disaster genre and the weird sci-fi also of that era is because the 70s was like, oh, they thought like this is the end of the American dream. Yeah, the oil crisis, stagflation, the end of the Vietnam War, Nixon, Carter. It's like, oh yeah, America's done. They didn't, we look at that and laugh. It's like, no, that was just the beginning of the end. We are actually living in the end. But that's like the secret, like, because there's all kinds of like class war stuff you can draw in this movie. because it's like you have the dreamer architect, and the hard-nosed businessman, but the real heroes are the public servant firemen.
Yeah.
Well, it's like they're the people that, like, we know this is wrong, but like we represent like benevolent socialism because your taxes pay for us to exist, and we tell you like these buildings are death traps. But the capitalists never listen. They just destroy society. Like if the building was a society, it was destroyed by the capitalists. But not all the capitalists were necessarily evil. They thought they were doing the right thing because whatever Paul Newman's character thought is like he got paid for doing this.
Yeah.
He was a part of it too.
Yeah.
He just wanted it done right, but he didn't really ask too many questions because that's he wouldn't get paid then. He'd find someone else. So yeah, that's like you can draw all kinds of weird class and social parallels that probably didn't really exist when they were making this movie.
Yeah.
Because there's nothing really like, because there's movies that are like that are just like subversive. This isn't it. I'm just being stupid, but it's also weirdly prescient too, considering the times that these movies were made in. It's like, yeah, disaster is on everyone's lips. It's like we're in the apocalypse. If you lived after World War II and through the 50s and 60s, like, yeah, the 70s, like this is the worst time to be alive ever. Post-war, prior to the war, the Depression, everything was even worse, like way worse than stagflation. It was like, no, am I going to have enough to eat? Like, no one's like wondering where their next meal's coming from. As a matter of fact, as time went on, we're in the opposite end of that now. It's like, oh, we're eating too much food. I mean, it's not real food, but nobody's going hungry.
I was sending a probe into space containing the supercut of the scenes from the imperfect collection that is a Verhoeven Effect. Nathan, what scene from this movie are we shoving into space?
Probably when O'Halloran and when McQueen and Newman are talking on the phone. It's like, you've got 15 minutes. It's like, we're going to deliver some explosives up there. And he's like, I'm going to find some dumb son of a bitch to do it, which he meant himself. But the reason this is important to this movie is, first of all, the two main characters are talking. They're establishing more about themselves. Like, he's going to try to save everyone, and so is Paul Newman. But it's also that 15 minutes somehow turns into 35 minutes. This problem this movie has, where it's like, we're going to have things in limited time frames, but we're not, because we're going to,
we had all the ideas.
24. Yeah.
I mean, I guess this is the problem of using two books is like you have all these, you just take all the cool scenes from both books and you put them all in the movie.
Yeah.
Because I feel like there's not really a superfluous amount of dialogue scenes, but there is.
No, there's a superfluous amount of scenes of people tying rope, screaming, and just buildings like a fire with the properties of like randomly placed explosives.
Yeah.
It's like, no, fires burn things. I mean, things do explode in fires, but not like every 5 minutes. Eventually, you're running out of stuff to explode.
Why is the concrete exploding? Oh shit, we built the stairs out of explosives.
Oh, it's because the center of the concrete hasn't cured. See, and the water's super expensive. See, that would be like a Michael Crichton, like we're gonna take a movie break to explain this. But no, this movie it's like they take this movie is way too long. Doesn't need to be this long, and it's all superfluous. Like, because I'm a guy, I love exposition, and like, let's stop and explain things in the middle of the movie. Some people hate that. Some people hate voiceovers. I love all that stuff.
Yeah.
The more complicated it is, the more I have to think about it, the more I'm engaged. Some people don't like to be entertained that way. I get that. But this movie was literally like, can we tie knots like the Boy Scouts? And it wasn't a movie I hate, but I didn't like it as much as Airplane. Airport. I'm sorry, Airport.
Both. Both of them are better movies. Or I guess more concise movies.
Yeah.
You still can't discount like the enormous like efforts they did to make this movie, at least for with all the fire and the stunts and stuff like that. Like that's grade A, but everything else is kind of longing. So
yeah, the story and stuff. I'm not going to say there's bad acting because there were good actors, but they didn't have a lot to act with.
No, it's a bad script, I guess.
Yeah.
So at least for dialogue, I guess. So
there's zero memorable lines from this movie except when Steve McQueen's like, they're gonna find some dumb son of a bitch. Kind of like he's like, he's like, I'm doing it.
So yes, we're on Letterboxd. So 1 out of 5 stars. What are we giving the
I'm
Towering
giving this
Inferno?
I'm giving this one a 2 for effort in special effects and some of the cool like practical stuff that went on that doesn't go on anymore, but also quite a slog.
Yeah.
And considering I had to buy this one, it's okay. Well, this will sit in my Amazon bin right next to like the Steve Bannon biopic that's like, this is kind of cool. It's too bad I couldn't just rent this and watch it once. But, oh well.
Yeah, I don't know why it was that way. That's rarely encountered where it's like, you can buy it whole, but you can't rent it.
Because the residuals being paid to the McQueen
Probably, I don't know.
family. I don't know.
Yeah, it's because it's split between Warner Brothers and Fox, and they can't agree on anything.
Yeah.
Well, if you like what you heard, and how can't you? You can find us at verhoeveneffect.com. You can there you can find listener support where you can support us on one stipend of either 99 cents, $4.99, or $9.99. You can also rate our podcast on whatever platform of your choice. You can rate us whatever you want, but remember, you control the outcome doesn't control you. So give us the highest rating. And you can find us at Twitter at Verhoeven Effect. You can find us at Facebook at Verhoeven Effect. You can find us on YouTube at American Greed Factory. We watch both this and that show live and unedited. And we also have t-shirts at belowthecollar.com/Greed Factory for 30 more days.
Yeah. Count down. Get those Verhoeven shirts while you can.
So for the Verhoeven Effect podcast,